Well, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Upper Tier podcast. A little bonus video, Pro Wrestling Weekly bonus video here. I thought I'd jump on something that's quite close to my heart, and something that, you know, if you've been following the podcast or you've spoke to me about wrestling or you've dropped into the shop or whatever it is, you'll know how passionate I am about TNA wrestling and how much I love TNA wrestling and how proud I am that we were the first ever store in Europe to stock TNA merchandise, both clothing and DVDs and all that kind of stuff, similar to Ring of Honor. Is a very proud thing for me. And, you know, I've often been a huge, you know, promotional vehicle for TNA and stuff like that. We've had James Storm in the shop and stuff like that and all, when they've come over and toured and had wrestlers in and all. But I've always been a huge fan of TNA. I love the creativity that was in there at the time. I've been watching it since about 2002, back in the old Nashville days. I loved the idea of the six-sided ring and the innovation that they used to bring, the X Division, the Ultimate X matches, the lockdown pay-per-view, all cage matches and all. The innovation they used to show was phenomenal. Of course, the roster at the time was stacked with unbelievable talent when you had Joe in there and AJ Styles and Jeff Jarrett and Christopher Daniels, to name but a few. The Dudleys were in there, and then they had the stacked women's division as well. And you remember at the time, really, when we talk about WWE and the evolution of the women's division, if you remember back to TNA during that time as well, they had a phenomenal women's division at the time. Gail Kim was in there, the Beautiful People were in there, Awesome Kong was in there, Victoria was in there. So many good women's wrestlers as well were in there as well. It was absolutely amazing at the time, you know. Taylor Wilde as well, of course. But the soundings coming out of there at the moment is kind of weird at the moment. And how do you feel about this? Let me know in the comments as well how you feel about where TNA is going, the direction of the company and stuff like that. They did announce there a while ago they did the big deal with AMC. So they signed a big contract and everyone was very happy for that. And remember, the talk at the time was now TNA could become the number 2 wrestling promotion in the world, and overtake AEW. But there's a lot been going on there at the moment. I mean, how has this partnership, do you feel, worked out with WWE in terms of, you know, the use of talent and the cross promotion and all that kind of stuff? And you look at it and you think, I think back to the days of Ring of Honor, where Ring of Honor was producing all these stars constantly, and then promotions will come in and just cherry pick the talent out of there. And they found a way to recycle and create more and stuff like that. But if you look at TNA in recent times, of course, we've seen Jordynne Grace go over to WWE. We've seen Joe Hendry go over to WWE, kind of somewhat nearly mid-contractual, really. And then we've seen, like, you know, in recent times now, we've heard Myla Grace, who you'd know from OTT as well, has requested her release out of TNA. Steve Macklin has requested his release out of TNA. There's been a lot of rumblings going around about creative in the company is just horrific at the moment. We've heard AJ Francis go out and call it out and stuff like that. We've also seen, though, the talk now with Mike Santana, that he's about to run his contract down. I think it expires in July, I think. And the talk is, where will Mike Santana go? Would he go to AEW? Looks like he'd probably go to WWE. There's been soundings there. A lot of positivity coming out. I mean, he's a guy who's really put the grind together and self-promoted himself and stuff like that to build himself up to the level that he's got to. An absolutely fabulous wrestler. And the talk is he might go to WWE if they can put a deal together, and he might get shotgun straight to the main roster, not go near NXT at all. So let us know your thoughts. How would you feel about Mike Santana going into WWE and coming out of TNA? And also there's talk at the moment of Leon Slater as well, which would be a massive loss. Leon Slater is one of the most one of the highlights that's been talked about so much outside of WWE and AEW. When you talk about talent, you talk about Leon Slater. We've had the privilege of having him on the podcast for an interview. Sean did the interview, if you want to go check it out. But Leon Slater is a phenomenal wrestler and has a big future and all. And WWE have parachuted them in at times as well to use them and stuff like that and all. But how do you feel about these names that are coming out at the moment, and what happens if these names go as well? Where does that leave TNA? And the other side of this as well is, I'm sure the AMC contract, you know, was signed on the backbone that a lot of people are saying that the Hardys had a huge influence in this and all. But if you look at the Hardys, I mean, the clock is ticking on that as well, isn't it? There's no doubt that they're massive and they're in there, and they're probably the biggest thing in there, really. But you look at Jeff is beginning to have his struggles now. You know, you look at Matt, the bodies now are starting to answer the call from years and years of wear and tear and craziness and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, if Jeff was out for a prolonged period of time, and if Matt was only there on his own, and how with that said, and, you know, if all these people are gone and stuff like that, what are they really left with roster wise and all, you know? So I just thought I'd have a conversation about it. Everyone knows how much I love TNA. It would be really sad to see it go if that was the case. Would feel really strange as well, just after signing this AMC deal as well. You know what I mean? Like it feels like they've signed one of the biggest TV contracts in the history of the company, and yet the talent is being allowed to walk out the door. Steve Macklin walking out the door. I was at Unbreakable during WrestleMania 41 week and all. What a phenomenal show it was, seeing Steve pick up the belt and stuff like that. You know, Dino could tell you more about Steve Macklin and stuff like that and all. What a phenomenal talent he is. And this is a guy who like bleeds TNA, who's demanding and asked for his release and was granted it. You know, is there money issues at the moment? You get a lot of soundings coming out that, like, is the pay where it should be, considering they've signed this big TV deal? Are they holding back on people? Are people just really getting paid survival money? A lot of people are getting short contracts. Fabian Archer's gone in there, and I think they've only signed them on a deal till the end of the summer, which seems like a very, very strange contract. Those other people are still on contracts, on paid performance contracts and stuff. Sorry, paid for appearance contracts and stuff. And I just don't know. Like, if you want to be taken serious and stuff like that, we know if you even go back, we know AJ Styles left over contractual disputes and various things like that, and all, even going back to AJ's time leaving the company, you know. Let us know your thoughts. What does the future hold for TNA? You know, and if more of these, like if they were to lose Mike Santana, if they were to lose Leon Slater, they've just lost Steve Macklin, they've just lost Myla Grace, they lost Jordine, they lost Joe Hendry. You know, they've lost a whole glut of talent off that roster. What do you think the future for TNA is going to look like? And then if Jeff is out, if Jeff has to take time off to, you know, heal up or whatever it is, or potentially even retire, who knows? And where does that leave Matt? And with them being such a huge part of TNA in terms of the draw and everything else, where would that leave the company going forward? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. It is concerning when we do talk about TNA and we look at how things are moving at the moment. Is it potentially pay and contract related now that they have this contract with AMC? Is it the TKO influence? Is it that WWE is taking the talent now and using TNA nearly now like a breeding school for future talent? So anything that comes through the TNA system, if they show any talent at all, WWE is just going to go, thank you very much. Is it a case that we're looking at a situation where we're beginning to see the rundown of TNA, and maybe WWE come in and just buy it? And scoop up the library and all that kind of stuff like they've done in the past. Let us know your thoughts. Where do you land on this? What does the future look like for TNA? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but as you know, as I said already, huge fan of the product, love the innovation and the different stuff that they do, and always get kind of excited when they announce the likes of the Unbreakables and the Slammiversaries and the Bound for Glories and stuff like that. You know, the history and the legacy of those big events and stuff like that goes way back. You know, we remember all the fabulous matches that we experienced off them. You know, so yeah, comment and let us know. If you could subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on the video, but let us know, how does the future of TNA look in your eyes?